The maid's daughter drew a heart on his desk, and the billionaire realized love had always been missing. Mr. Castellano, I'm so sorry. She got away from me. For just a second. Marcus Castellano looked up from his laptop, his sharp gray eyes taking in the scene before him. His housekeeper, Elena Rodriguez, stood in the doorway of his home office, her hands clasped anxiously in front of her pale blue uniform. Beside her, partially hidden behind her mother's legs, was a tiny girl with dark curls and enormous brown eyes that seemed to take up half her face. She didn't break anything, did she? Marcus asked, his tone more weary than angry. It was past 9 o'clock on a Friday evening, and he'd been working since 6 that morning. No, sir, but... Elena's voice trailed off as she gestured helplessly toward his antique mahogany desk, the one that had belonged to his grandfather, the founder of Castellano Industries. Marcus stood and walked around the desk, and that's when he saw it. There, on the glossy surface that had been polished to perfection just that morning, was a drawing. Done in red crayon, a lopsided heart sat next to a stick figure with yellow scribbles for hair, presumably him, given the location, and 2 smaller figures holding hands. His first instinct was irritation. That desk was worth more than most people made in a year. But as he stared at the childish drawing, something unexpected happened. The tight knot of tension he'd been carrying in his chest for the past 12 years, since his father had died and left him a company to run at age 20, loosened just a fraction. I'll clean it off immediately, Elena said, already moving toward the desk with a cloth she'd pulled from her pocket. And I'll pay for any damage. Stop. Marcus held up a hand, surprising himself as much as Elena. He crouched down to eye level with the little girl, who was now peeking out at him with cautious curiosity. What's your name? Sophia, the child whispered, her small voice barely audible. Well, Sophia, did you draw this for me? She nodded, her curls bouncing. You looked sad through the window. Mama says hearts make people happy. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest, a fissure in the carefully constructed walls he'd built around himself. When was the last time someone had tried to make him happy? When was the last time he'd even thought about happiness as something attainable rather than a luxury he couldn't afford? It does make me happy, he heard himself say, and was startled to realize it was true. Thank you, Sophia. The little girl's face broke into a sunshine smile that lit up the entire room. Elena looked stunned, her cloth frozen in midair. You don't have to clean it off, Marcus said, standing. Not yet, anyway. But, sir, the desk will survive a little crayon, he finished. How old is she? 3. Just turned 3 last month, Elena confirmed, still looking uncertain about this unexpected turn of events. Marcus studied his housekeeper properly for the first time in the 6 months she'd been working for him. Elena was young, late 20s, perhaps, with kind eyes that held shadows he recognized because he saw similar ones in his own mirror. She always arrived exactly on time, worked efficiently without complaint, and left his penthouse spotless. He knew she had a daughter because it was in her employment file, but he'd never actually met the child until tonight. Why is she here? He asked, not accusingly but with genuine curiosity. Elena's cheeks flushed. My babysitter canceled last-minute food poisoning. I tried to find someone else, but... I'm so sorry, Mr. Castellano. It won't happen again. I can come back tomorrow to finish. It's Friday night, Marcus interrupted. You shouldn't be here at all. I told you last week that you could skip tonight. I know, but you have the charity gala tomorrow, and I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. Elena's voice was quiet but firm. I don't like leaving things undone. Marcus recognized that sentiment. It was the same drive that kept him at his desk until midnight most nights, the same compulsion that made him check his phone during the rare dinners he shared with business associates, the same force that had turned him into the youngest billionaire in Manhattan and the loneliest man he knew. The apartment is already perfect, he said. Go home. Both of you. Elena hesitated, then nodded. Thank you, Mr. Castellano. Come on, Sophia. As they turned to leave, Marcus found himself speaking again. Elena? She turned back, Sophia's small hand clasped in hers. Does she like ice cream? Both Elena and her daughter looked confused by the question. Yes, sir? There's a gelato place 2 blocks from here. Mateo's. Best in the city. Marcus pulled out his wallet and extracted a $100 bill. Take her. My treat. For the heart. Elena stared at the money as if it might bite her. Mr. Castellano, I can't accept. Yes, you can. He set the bill on the corner of the desk, carefully away from the crayon drawing. Consider it a thank you for 6 months of excellent work. And for reminding me that. He trailed off, unsure how to finish the sentence. That what, sir? Marcus looked at the heart on his desk again, at the simple joy captured in red crayon by a 3-year-old who had seen him through a window and decided he needed cheering up. That some things are worth more than a clean desk, he said finally. After they left, Marcus stood alone in his office, surrounded by the trappings of his success. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, the original Picasso on the wall, the shelves lined with awards and closed deals. His empire. His cage. He sat down at his desk and, for the first time in years, closed his laptop without finishing his work. Instead, he traced the outline of Sophia's crayon heart with one finger, and something that felt almost like hope stirred in his chest. The charity gala was exactly what Marcus expected. 200 people in designer clothes pretending to care about causes they'd forget by Monday morning. He moved through the crowd at the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom with practiced ease, shaking hands, making small talk, writing checks that would earn him tax deductions and positive press. Marcus. There you are. Diane Ashford, a socialite who'd been trying to get his attention for months, latched onto his arm with manicured fingers. I was just telling everyone about your incredible donation to the Arts Foundation. So generous. It's important to give back, Marcus said automatically, the words hollow even to his own ears. We should have dinner next week, Diane purred. I know this wonderful new place in Tribeca. I'll have my assistant check my schedule, Marcus replied, already knowing he'd instruct said assistant to cite a conflict. He gently extricated his arm and excused himself, citing the need to speak with a board member across the room. As he walked away, his phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. The mayor's office called. They want to discuss the waterfront development project. Meeting Tuesday at 10. Marcus confirmed the meeting and pocketed his phone, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle back onto his shoulders. This was his life. Transactions and appointments, obligations and opportunities. Every moment scheduled, every relationship calculated for mutual benefit. He found himself thinking about Sophia's drawing, still on his desk at home. He'd actually taken a photo of it before leaving for the gala, though he couldn't explain why. Now he pulled out his phone and looked at it again, that wonky red heart and those stick figures. Looking at photos of your girlfriend? Marcus turned to find his best friend, perhaps his only real friend, James Wu, grinning at him. James was one of the few people from his pre-billionaire life who still treated him like a normal person. Something like that, Marcus said dryly, showing him the photo. James's eyebrows shot up. Did you have a stroke? Since when do you save pictures of children's drawings? Since one of them drew it on my grandfather's desk and I didn't fire her mother. You? Mr. Everything Has Its Place, Castellano? James laughed. Who is this woman who's made you go soft? She's my housekeeper. And I haven't gone soft. Marcus struggled to find the words. Her daughter thought I looked sad. Through a window. A 3-year-old noticed something that apparently no one else in my life has. James's expression sobered. Marcus, man, everyone in your life has noticed. We just don't know what to do about it. The words hit harder than they should have. Marcus took a sip of his champagne, which tasted expensive and unsatisfying. I'm fine. You're 32 years old, and you spend every weekend working. You live in a penthouse that looks like a museum. When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to, not because it served some business purpose? I went to the Knicks game last month. With 3 clients and a potential investor. Try again. Marcus didn't have an answer. He looked around the ballroom, at the glittering chandeliers, the ice sculptures, the orchestra playing in the corner, and felt utterly disconnected from it all. He'd been so busy building his empire, proving he could fill his father's shoes and then surpass him, that somewhere along the way he'd forgotten how to simply exist. "I should go," he said abruptly. James checked his watch. "It's only 10. The auction hasn't even started, and you're supposed to present the keynote donor award. Get someone else to do it. Donate another $100,000 in my name if you need to smooth things over. Marcus." But he was already walking toward the exit, loosening his bow tie as he went. He could feel the stares following him, could imagine tomorrow's gossip about Marcus Castellano leaving his own charity gala early. Let them talk. He suddenly didn't care. 20 minutes later, he stood in his penthouse, still in his tuxedo, staring at the crayon heart on his desk. The apartment was silent except for the distant hum of the city below. 4,200 square feet of marble and glass and carefully curated art, and he never felt the emptiness quite so acutely. He thought about Elena and Sophia. Where did they live? What did their home look like? He realized he knew almost nothing about the woman who kept his life running smoothly, who made sure his shirts were pressed and his refrigerator stocked and his space immaculate. Marcus pulled out his phone and opened the file his head of security maintained on all household employees. It was a habit his lawyers had insisted on: background checks, addresses, references. He'd never actually looked at Elena's file before, trusting his staff to handle the vetting. Elena Rodriguez, age 28. Single mother. Previous employment at the Waldorf Astoria. Excellent references. Current address: a modest apartment building in Queens, nearly an hour subway ride from his building. She commuted 2 hours a day, sometimes more, to clean his home. There was a note about her emergency contact, Maria Rodriguez, listed as her mother. And a flag in the file that caught his attention. Elena had declined the health insurance benefits package he offered, citing that she was covered elsewhere. But when he dug deeper, he found she'd actually chosen to apply that portion of her compensation to a college savings fund for Sophia instead. She was sacrificing her own healthcare to save for her daughter's future. Marcus sat down at his desk, the crayon heart between him and his laptop. He'd built a billion-dollar company on the principle of identifying problems and creating solutions. But sitting here in his perfect, empty apartment, he realized he'd been solving the wrong problems all along. What good was all his success if he had no one to share it with? What was the point of building an empire if he was too isolated to enjoy it? A memory surfaced from childhood. His mother, before she'd left, reading him a story about a king who turned everything he touched to gold. Young Marcus had thought it sounded wonderful until the king couldn't eat or hug anyone he loved. His mother had closed the book and said, "Remember me, hijo. The richest man is the one who knows what's truly valuable." He'd forgotten that lesson somewhere between business school and his first million. Marcus traced Sophia's drawing again, his finger following the bumpy crayon lines. The little girl had given him something without expecting anything in return: pure, uncomplicated kindness. When was the last time someone had done that? He picked up his phone and started typing an email to his assistant, then stopped. This wasn't something to delegate. Whatever he was feeling, this strange mixture of loneliness and longing and something that might have been hope, required him to actually show up for once. Marcus looked at his watch. 10:47 p.m. Too late to call. But tomorrow was Sunday, Elena's day off. Maybe he could. What was he thinking? She was his employee. There were boundaries, professional standards. He couldn't just, but even as his mind listed all the reasons this was inappropriate, his heart, that organ he'd been ignoring for 12 years, beat a little faster. He thought about how Elena's face had softened when she looked at her daughter, the fierce protectiveness in her eyes when she thought Sophia had caused trouble. He thought about Sophia's guileless smile when he'd said her heart made him happy. They had something he'd lost somewhere along the way: connection, purpose, love. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Marcus Castellano wanted something that money couldn't buy. Sunday morning found Marcus doing something he hadn't done in years: sleeping past 6 a.m. When he finally woke at 8:30, he lay in bed feeling disoriented, as if he'd stepped out of time somehow. Sunlight streamed through his bedroom windows, painting gold across the ceiling. He thought immediately of the crayon heart. Marcus showered and dressed in jeans and a cashmere sweater, casual clothes that felt strange after spending most of his life in suits. He made coffee in his state-of-the-art espresso machine, another thing he rarely used since he usually grabbed something on the way to the office. As he stood in his kitchen, mug in hand, he admitted to himself what he'd been avoiding all night. He wanted to see Elena and Sophia again. Not as employer and employee, but as, what?
People.
Human beings. A woman who worked too hard and a little girl who drew hearts for sad strangers. It was crazy. It was inappropriate. It was probably the most impulsive thing he'd considered doing since he'd dropped out of business school to save his father's company. He was going to do it anyway. Marcus found the address from Elena's file and entered it into his phone. An hour and 15 minutes by car. He could be there by 10, which seemed like a reasonable Sunday morning time. Not so early that he'd wake them, not so late that they might have other plans. But what would he say when he got there? Hi, I'm your employer and I couldn't stop thinking about your daughter's crayon drawing, so I drove to Queens to what exactly? He called James. It's 9 in the morning on a Sunday, his friend groaned into the phone. Someone better be dying. I need advice, Marcus said. Marcus? You never need advice. You have a plan for everything. Not for this. Something in his tone must have registered because James's voice sharpened. What's going on? Is the company okay? The company's fine. This is. Marcus paused, feeling foolish. Personal. Silence on the other end. Then. I'm awake. You have my full attention. What's personal? Marcus explained about the drawing, about seeing Elena and Sophia, about the strange emptiness he'd felt at the gala and the stranger fullness when he looked at that crayon heart. Let me get this straight, James said slowly. You want to drive to Queens to see your housekeeper and her 3-year-old daughter because you're lonely? It sounds pathetic when you say it like that. No, man, it sounds human. It sounds like maybe you're finally letting yourself feel something. James was quiet for a moment. But Marcus, you need to be careful here. She works for you. There's a power dynamic. And she has a kid. This isn't something you can approach the way you do a business deal. I know that.
Do you?
Because your track record with relationships isn't exactly stellar. You date women for exactly 3 months, sleep with them maybe half a dozen times, then end things when they want more. You keep everyone at arm's length. Marcus winced at the accuracy. This is different.
How?
I don't know. It just is. He stared at his coffee. A 3-year-old I've met once saw something in me that I've been pretending doesn't exist. I'm tired, James. I'm tired of the emptiness. Then do something about it. But do it right. Don't go barging into her home unannounced. That's creepy billionaire behavior, not decent human behavior. So what do? You could start by having an actual conversation with her at work. Get to know her as a person. Find out if she's even interested in you seeing her as anything other than her boss. It was sensible advice. It was the smart, appropriate approach. Marcus looked at his keys on the counter. What if she says no? Then you respect it and move on. Marcus, here's the thing, you can't buy this. You can't negotiate it or strategize it. Either there's something there, or there isn't. And you need to be okay with the possibility that she might not want anything to do with you outside of work. Why wouldn't she? James laughed. And there's the billionaire ego. Dude, she's a single mom working as a housekeeper. For all you know, she's got a boyfriend. Or she thinks you're an uptight workaholic who doesn't notice she exists except when his desk gets dirty. You need to actually see her, Marcus. Not as an employee, not as a potential conquest, but as a whole person. After he hung up, Marcus sat with his coffee and thought about James's words. He'd built his success on confidence, on making decisions quickly and committing fully. But this wasn't business. This was life, messy and unpredictable and terrifying in its uncertainty. He put the car keys back in the drawer. Instead, he opened his laptop and started researching childcare in Manhattan. If Elena was struggling to find reliable babysitters, maybe he could help with that as an employer. It wasn't personal, not really, it was just being a good boss, ensuring his employees had the support they needed. But even as he told himself that, he knew the truth. He wanted an excuse to talk to her, to understand her life, to bridge the vast gap between his world and hers. By noon, he'd identified 3 high-quality childcare centers near his building, all with excellent reviews and reasonable rates. He drafted an email to his HR director about expanding employee benefits to include childcare assistance, then deleted it. Too impersonal. Marcus looked at the crayon heart photo on his phone again. Sophia's stick figures holding hands. The simple, pure wish for him to be less sad. He picked up his phone and called Elena's number from her file. It rang 4 times, and he was about to hang up when she answered. "Hello." She sounded surprised, maybe a little worried. "Elena, it's Marcus Castellano. I hope I'm not disturbing your Sunday." "Mr. Castellano." "No, it's fine. Is everything okay? Did something happen at the apartment?" "Everything's fine. I actually wanted to." He paused, suddenly uncertain. "I wanted to thank you again for Friday night. For being understanding when Sophia. Well, I hope you both enjoyed the gelato." There was a smile in her voice when she replied. "We did. Sophia wouldn't stop talking about it. Or about you saying her heart made you happy. That meant the world to her." "It meant a lot to me too. More than she probably realizes." Marcus took a breath. "Elena, I was wondering if we could talk sometime. Not about work, just talk. I realized I don't know anything about you beyond your employee file, and that seems wrong after 6 months." Silence on the other end. He could almost hear her thinking, calculating, trying to figure out his angle. Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Castellano?" Her voice was carefully neutral.
No.
"Maybe. I don't know." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with his own uncertainty. "I'm asking if you'd be willing to have coffee with me as 2 people, not employer and employee. No pressure, no expectations. Just conversation. With all due respect, sir, there's always a power dynamic when you're the one signing my paycheck." "You're right," Marcus admitted. "That's there, and I can't pretend it's not. But I'm asking anyway because Friday night made me realize how small my world has become, and I'd like to do something about that. If you're not interested, that's completely fine. Your job is secure either way, I promise you that." Another pause. Then, so quietly, he almost missed it. "Sophia asked if you were the prince from her storybooks." Marcus's heart did something complicated in his chest. "What did you tell her?" "I told her you were my boss and that princes aren't real." Elena's voice was softer now. "But she insisted you must be a prince because princes are always sad until someone shows them how to smile." Smart kid. "She is." There was fierce pride in those 2 words. "Mr. Castellano." "Marcus. Please." "Marcus," she said, testing the name. "I appreciate the offer, but I need to be honest with you. I'm a single mom with a 3-year-old. My life is complicated and messy, and I don't have time for games or whatever this is. If you're bored or lonely and looking for a distraction, I'm not the person for that." "I understand. And you're right to be cautious." Marcus stared out his window at the city below. "But I'm not looking for a distraction. I'm looking for something real. Something that matters. I haven't felt that in a very long time, and your daughter's crayon heart reminded me that I'm missing it." He could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, could imagine her weighing his words, deciding whether to trust him. "1 coffee," she said finally, "in a public place. And if I feel for 1 second that you're not being genuine, I'm out." "Fair enough. Tuesday afternoon? There's a cafe near the apartment." "Not near your apartment. Neutral ground." He smiled despite himself. "You're negotiating with me. I learned from the best. You're pretty famous for your negotiation skills, Mr. Marcus." They settled on a cafe in Midtown, halfway between his world and hers. After they hung up, Marcus sat staring at his phone, feeling something that took him a moment to identify: anticipation. For the first time in 12 years, he was looking forward to something that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings or market share or the next big deal. He was looking forward to coffee with a woman who'd called him out, who hadn't been dazzled by his wealth or status, who was more concerned with protecting her daughter than impressing him. Marcus looked at the crayon heart one more time. Maybe Sophia had been right. Maybe he was a prince who'd forgotten how to smile. And maybe Elena was the one who could remind him how. Tuesday afternoon, Marcus arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, then spent 10 of those minutes sitting in his car trying to remember the last time he'd been nervous about anything. He'd pitched to venture capitalists at 20. He'd negotiated billion-dollar mergers before 30. He'd given keynote speeches to thousands of people without breaking a sweat. But the prospect of coffee with Elena Rodriguez had his palms actually sweating. He finally went inside, chose a table by the window where they'd have privacy but wouldn't feel isolated, and ordered a black coffee he didn't really want just to have something to do with his hands. Elena arrived exactly on time, and Marcus stood as she approached. She wore jeans and a soft pink sweater, her dark hair loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back like it was when she cleaned his apartment. Without the uniform, without the professional distance, she looked younger, and even more beautiful than he'd noticed before. "Hi," he said, and was annoyed at how rough his voice sounded. "Hi." She sat across from him, ordering a latte, when the waitress came by. Her hands were clasped on the table, and Marcus noticed she wasn't wearing a wedding ring. Not that he'd expected one, but seeing the absence made something in him relax slightly. An awkward silence stretched between them. Marcus, who'd made small talk with presidents and CEOs, suddenly couldn't think of a single thing to say. Elena broke the silence with a small smile. "You look uncomfortable. Is it that obvious? You're sitting like you're in a business meeting. All rigid." She demonstrated, making her shoulders stiff and her expression serious, and Marcus found himself laughing.
Sorry.
Old habits. He consciously relaxed his posture. "I'm not very good at this." "At what? Talking to people?" "At talking to people as myself, not as Marcus Castellano, CEO." He paused. "I spent 12 years becoming that person. Somewhere along the way, I forgot there was supposed to be more." Elena studied him with those dark, intelligent eyes. "What made you remember?" "Your daughter drew a heart on my desk and told me I looked sad." He met her gaze. She was right. I was sad. I just hadn't let myself admit it. "Sophia has a gift for seeing people," Elena said softly. "She's always been that way, even as a baby. She can sense when someone needs comfort." "Tell me about her." "About you. I know you're 28, you're from Queens, and you make the best coffee I've ever had. But that's all I know." Elena hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start with how you ended up working for me." She stirred her latte, organizing her thoughts. "I was working at the Waldorf, housekeeping. The pay was okay, but the hours were brutal and unpredictable. When Sophia was born, I needed something more stable, something that would let me be home with her at night. Your company posted for a private housekeeper, consistent hours, better pay, weekends off. It seemed like a gift." "Sophia's father?" Marcus asked, then immediately regretted the directness. "Sorry, that's too personal." "No, it's okay. We should clear the air." Elena took a sip of her latte. "He left when I was 6 months pregnant. Said he wasn't ready to be a father. I haven't heard from him since." "I'm sorry. I'm not." If he'd stayed, Sophia would have known she wasn't wanted. This way, she has me, she has my mom, and she has a life full of people who love her fiercely. There was steel in Elena's voice. "We're doing fine." Marcus heard the defensive note and understood it. She'd probably dealt with plenty of judgment, plenty of people assuming she was struggling or making bad choices. "I can see that. She's clearly a happy, loved little girl." Elena's expression softened.
She is.
"She's my whole world." "What do you want for her?" "Long term, I mean." "Everything I didn't have." Elena's eyes grew distant. "My parents immigrated from Mexico when I was 2. They worked so hard, my dad in construction, my mom cleaning houses. They wanted me to go to college, to have opportunities. I got a scholarship to CUNY, but then my dad got injured on a job site, and I had to drop out to help with bills." She paused. "I met Sophia's father during that time. He seemed like a way out, you know? Someone who had his life together, who could help me get back on track. Instead, I ended up right where I started, working as a housekeeper like my mom. But you're saving for Sophia's education, Marcus said, thinking of the note in her file. Elena looked surprised. How did you write the employee files? Yes, every penny I can spare goes into her college fund. She's going to have choices. She's going to become whatever she wants to be. What would you have become? If you'd finished college? A teacher, Elena said without hesitation. I love kids. I love watching them learn and grow, seeing the world through their eyes. Sophia reminds me why I wanted that. She asks a million questions a day, sees magic in everything. She smiled. Last week she insisted that clouds are actually sleeping sheep and rain is their dreams falling down. Marcus laughed, charmed by the image. That's beautiful. She's my poet. Elena's whole face glowed when she talked about her daughter. She makes up stories about everything. The pigeons in the park are secret agents. The subway is a dragon carrying people through underground caves. The lights in tall buildings are stars that got too heavy and fell down. Like my building? Marcus asked. Especially your building. She calls it the castle in the clouds. When I told her I worked there, she insisted you must be royalty. Elena's expression turned more serious. That's why Friday night scared me so much. Not just because she drew on your desk, but because she came home spinning stories about the kind prince who liked her heart. I don't want her disappointed when real life doesn't match her fairy tales. What if real life could be better than the fairy tales? Marcus said quietly. You don't understand what you're asking for, Elena said, meeting his eyes. I'm not some glamorous woman from your world who can go to galas and network with important people. I'm a single mom who shops at discount stores and hasn't been on a date in 4 years because I can't afford a babysitter. My life is preschool pickups and grocery shopping and trying to make rent every month while saving for the future. It's small and ordinary and real, Marcus interrupted. And full of love and purpose and all the things my supposedly glamorous life is missing. He leaned forward. Elena, I left my own charity gala on Saturday because I couldn't stand another minute of people pretending to care about causes they don't believe in. I came home to my perfect, empty apartment and realized that my life, my whole carefully constructed existence, feels hollow. You know what wasn't hollow? Your daughter's crayon heart. The way you held her hand when you thought I might be angry. That was real. Elena was quiet for a long moment. What are you looking for here, Marcus? Honestly, I'm not sure. I just know that for the first time in 12 years, I want something that isn't about business or money or building an empire. He struggled for the right words. I want to know what it feels like to have someone care if I'm sad. I want to remember why I built that company in the first place, before it became just another thing to conquer. And maybe, he took a breath, maybe I want to be someone who deserves to have a little girl think he might be a prince. Tears shimmered in Elena's eyes. You can't just decide you want a ready-made family, because you're lonely. Sophia's not a solution to your existential crisis. You're right. She's not. But what if this isn't about what I need? What if I could actually help? You're working yourself to the bone, commuting 2 hours a day, sacrificing your own health care, so your daughter can go to college someday. That's noble, Elena, but it's not sustainable. I don't need your charity. It's not charity. Marcus ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I'm saying this all wrong. I don't want to rescue you, or buy your affection, or whatever else you're thinking. I just want the chance to know you. Both of you. As people. As friends, if nothing else. Why should I trust you? Elena asked bluntly. Because I'm trusting you with the truth, Marcus said. I'm admitting I'm lost. I'm successful and wealthy and completely empty inside. That's not something I tell anyone. But I'm telling you because something about Friday night cracked something open in me, and I can't pretend anymore that everything's fine. The waitress came by to refill their cups, breaking the tension. When she left, Elena spoke again, her voice softer. My mom used to clean houses for rich people. She'd come home with stories about their lives, the affairs, the addictions, the kids who had everything except parents who actually paid attention to them. She'd tell me that money doesn't buy happiness, that the richest people are often the poorest in spirit. Elena looked directly at him. When I started working for you, I thought you fit that pattern. Big apartment, no personal items anywhere, working all hours. I felt sorry for you. You should have, Marcus said quietly. I feel sorry for myself when I let myself think about it. But then Friday happened, and Sophia came home talking about how you smiled at her. Really smiled, she said, like you meant it. And I realized maybe you weren't cold. Maybe you were just alone. Elena wrapped her hands around her mug. Alone is something I understand. Are you? Alone, I mean? Yes and no. I have Sophia, I have my mom. But in terms of a partner, someone to share things with. She trailed off.
Yes.
I'm alone.
It's easier that way.
Safer. Safer how? I can't get hurt if I don't let anyone in. And more importantly, Sophia can't get attached to someone who might leave. She's already missing a father. I won't risk giving her someone else to lose. Marcus understood the fear in her words, the fierce protectiveness. What if I promised not to leave? You can't promise that. No one can. Then what if I promise to be honest? To not play games or lead you on? To respect that you and Sophia are a package deal, and treating you well means treating her well too. Elena studied him for a long time. Finally, she said, one day, this Saturday, you can spend the afternoon with me and Sophia. We're going to the Children's Museum, something we've been saving up for. If you can handle a 3-year-old for 4 hours in a crowded museum, if you can exist in our world without trying to fix it or improve it or throw money at it, then we'll talk about whether there's something here worth exploring. Deal, Marcus said immediately. I'm serious about the money thing. You show up like a normal person, no limo, no designer clothes, no buying Sophia every toy in the gift shop. You're just Marcus, not Marcus Castellano the billionaire. How will I survive? He said with a slight smile, and was rewarded with a laugh. We'll see, won't we? Elena stood, gathering her bag. Saturday at noon. I'll text you the address. Marcus stood too. Thank you for giving me a chance. Thanks, Sophia, Elena said. She's the one who insisted her prince couldn't really be sad, that he just needed someone to show him the magic. She paused at the door. Don't make my daughter wrong about you, Marcus. She believes in fairy tales. I'd hate for you to be the one who teaches her they're not real. After she left, Marcus sat back down, his coffee cold in front of him. He pulled out his phone and looked at the photo of Sophia's crayon heart again. He had 4 days to figure out how to be just Marcus, a person, not a brand. 4 days to remember who he'd been before the world had told him that success meant distance and wealth meant walls. 4 days to prove that sometimes, maybe, fairy tales could come true. Saturday arrived with clear skies and Marcus's first genuine case of nerves in years. He stood in front of his closet, a walk-in space larger than many Manhattan studio apartments, and stared at rows of designer suits and custom shirts. Elena had said to dress normally, but what was normal for him? Finally, he settled on dark jeans, a simple gray Henley, and sneakers he'd bought for the gym and never actually worn. Looking at himself in the mirror, he barely recognized the man staring back. No tie, no expensive watch, no armor of wealth. Just him. The Children's Museum was on the Upper West Side, and Marcus took the subway. Another first in recent years. He usually had his driver take him everywhere, but something about Elena's challenge had made him want to prove he could navigate the city like a regular person. The subway was crowded, loud, and full of humanity in all its messy glory. A teenager with headphones bobbed to music only he could hear. A couple argued in Spanish about whose mother they'd visit for Sunday dinner. An elderly woman knitted something small and blue, her needles clicking rhythmically. And everywhere, there were parents with children, toddlers pointing at the subway map, babies sleeping in carriers, kids bouncing with a kind of irrepressible energy that made Marcus both exhausted and nostalgic for something he'd never had. He arrived at the museum at 11:55, finding Elena and Sophia waiting outside. Sophia wore a bright yellow dress with sunflowers on it, and when she spotted Marcus, her entire face lit up. "The prince," she shouted, breaking free from her mother's hand to run toward him. Marcus crouched down just in time to catch her enthusiastic hug.
Hi, Sophia.
You look beautiful today. I'm a sunflower, she announced seriously. Mama said we're going to see real butterflies, and I wanted to look like a flower, so they'll like me. They're going to love you, Marcus said, meaning it. He stood, meeting Elena's eyes over Sophia's head. She wore a simple sundress and sandals, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, and Marcus thought she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. You came, Elena said, and there was surprise in her voice. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might send a very polite text saying something came up. She smiled slightly. Rich men usually have very important things that suddenly require their attention. Not today. Today the only important thing is butterflies. Sophia grabbed his hand with the unself-conscious trust of a child who hadn't yet learned that the world could disappoint. Come on. Mama bought 3 tickets and 1 is yours. Inside, the museum was controlled chaos. Children everywhere, running and laughing and learning. The Butterfly Conservatory was a humid dome filled with tropical plants and hundreds of butterflies in every color imaginable. Sophia pressed her nose to the glass entrance, practically vibrating with excitement. Before we go in, Elena said, kneeling to Sophia's level, remember what we talked about? The butterflies are delicate. We can look, but we can't touch unless one lands on us. Gentle voices, gentle movements. I'll be gentle, Sophia promised solemnly. Then she looked up at Marcus. Will you be gentle too, Prince Marcus? I'll be very gentle, he assured her, ignoring Elena's slight eye roll at the prince title. Inside the conservatory, Sophia's enthusiasm met her mother's coaching, resulting in a careful excitement that was adorable to watch. She walked slowly, pointing out butterflies in whispered exclamations. That one's blue like the sky. That one's orange like my juice. That one has eyes on its wings. Why does it have eyes, Mama? Elena patiently explained about defense mechanisms while Marcus followed, content to watch this mother-daughter dynamic. Elena was different here than in his apartment, more relaxed, more herself. She laughed easily at Sophia's observations, answering endless questions with the kind of patience that came from genuine love rather than obligation. A butterfly, large and iridescent blue, landed on Marcus's shoulder. Sophia gasped. Mama, look. It chose him. That's a blue morpho, Elena said softly, moving closer to see. They're rare. It's good luck when they land on you. Marcus stood perfectly still, afraid to breathe, and dislodged the delicate creature. Sophia moved closer, her small face serious with concentration as she studied the butterfly. He likes you, she whispered. He knows you're nice. How can you tell? Marcus whispered back. Because butterflies are magic. They only land on people who have kind hearts. Sophia's logic was unassailable in its childish certainty. The butterfly stayed for a full minute before flying away. Sophia clapped softly, her discipline about being quiet abandoned in her delight. You're blessed now, she informed Marcus. That's what Mama says when good things happen. I think she's right, Marcus said, looking at Elena. They spent 2 hours in the museum. Marcus watched Sophia build block towers in the construction zone, her tongue poking out in concentration. He helped her dig for dinosaur bones in the archaeology pit, getting sand in his shoes, and not caring. He sat through a puppet show where Sophia laughed so hard she got hiccups. And through it all, he watched Elena watch her daughter, seeing the fierce love and pride and joy that radiated from her. This was what he'd been missing, not just connection, but purpose beyond profit margins and market share. When Sophia started to get tired and cranky, Elena suggested lunch at a pizza place nearby. Nothing fancy, Elena warned. It's basically a hole in the wall. Perfect, Marcus said. The pizza place was indeed small and worn, with mismatched furniture and sports memorabilia on the walls. But the pizza was incredible, and Sophia perked up immediately when the server brought crayons and paper placemats to color on. Can you draw hearts? Sophia asked Marcus, offering him a red crayon. I can try, but mine won't be as good as yours. That's okay. Everyone's hearts look different. She started drawing enthusiastically. This is me, and this is Mama, and this is you. We're all holding hands. Marcus looked at the drawing, 3 stick figures with a bright red heart floating above them. He felt his throat tighten unexpectedly. That's beautiful, mi amor, Elena said softly, stroking Sophia's hair. I'm making a family, Sophia explained. Everyone needs a family. Elena's eyes met Marcus's across the table, and he saw his own emotions reflected there, hope mixed with fear, wanting mixed with uncertainty. After lunch, Sophia fell asleep in her stroller on the walk to the subway. Elena pushed her gently, and Marcus walked beside them, feeling strangely complete. Thank you for today, Elena said quietly. You didn't have to do all that, the dinosaur dig, the puppet show. You could have just showed up and checked a box. I didn't want to check a box. I wanted. Marcus paused, searching for words. When that butterfly landed on me, Sophia said it meant I had a kind heart. I can't remember the last time anyone thought of me that way. In my world, I'm ruthless, strategic, cold. But today, watching her see magic everywhere, I remembered that I used to see it too. Before my father died, before I had to become someone harder. Today I felt like maybe that person isn't completely gone.
He's not, Elena said.
I saw it. The way you got on your hands and knees in the sand, the way you watched that puppet show like it was actually entertaining, the way you held Sophia's hand in the conservatory. That was real, Marcus. That was you. Is this crazy? Marcus asked suddenly. You barely know me. I barely know you. We're from completely different worlds. But I feel like maybe something's starting? Elena finished.
Yes.
It's crazy. It's terrifying. And I can't promise where this goes, or if it's even possible. But today was good. Today felt right. They reached the subway station, and Marcus realized he didn't want the day to end. Can I see you again? Both of you. Sophia stirred in her stroller, blinking sleepy eyes. Prince Marcus. Hey, sleepyhead, Marcus said, crouching by the stroller. Did you have fun today? She asked around a yawn. I had the best day, he said honestly. Me too. She reached out and patted his hand. You're not sad anymore. No, Marcus said, looking at Elena. I'm not sad anymore. Good. That means the magic worked. Sophia's eyes drifted closed again, satisfied. Marcus stood, and Elena was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Next Saturday, she said. But this time, you bring us into your world. I want to see where you live, really see it, not just the surfaces I clean. And I want to see if you can be yourself there, in all that marble and perfection. Because if this is going somewhere, I need to know that you're real in both worlds, not just the one where butterflies land on you. Deal, Marcus said. Although I should warn you, my world is significantly less magical than this one. Then we'll bring the magic with us, Elena said simply. She leaned forward and kissed his cheek, a brief, soft touch that sent electricity through his entire body. Thank you for today, for being real. On the subway ride home, Marcus felt lighter than he had in years. He pulled out his phone and looked at the photos he'd sneaked throughout the day, Sophia's delight in the butterfly conservatory, Elena laughing at the puppet show, that drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands. His phone buzzed with a text from James. How'd it go? Marcus typed back, I think I might be falling in love with a 3-year-old who believes in magic. Just the 3-year-old? James responded. Marcus thought about Elena's smile, her fierce protectiveness, the way she made him want to be better than he was. No, he typed. Not just her. When he got home, his penthouse felt different, less like a museum and more like a space waiting to be filled with life. He looked at his desk, at Sophia's original crayon heart still there after a week. Tomorrow he'd start preparing for next Saturday, thinking about how to show Elena and Sophia his world without overwhelming them, how to be himself in the space where he'd spent so long being someone else. But tonight, he just sat at his desk and drew his own heart with a red pen on a piece of paper. It was crooked and imperfect and nothing like the polished perfection of everything else in his apartment. It was, he thought, the first real thing he'd created in 12 years. The week leading up to Saturday felt impossibly long. Marcus found himself distracted in meetings, checking his phone more than usual, counting down the hours. James teased him mercilessly about it. "You've got it bad," he said over lunch on Wednesday. "I've never seen you like this." "Like what?"
Happy.
"Uncertain. Human." James grinned. "It's unsettling but also kind of great." Marcus had asked his assistant to clear his Saturday, citing personal reasons. She'd nearly dropped her tablet in shock. Marcus Castellano didn't do personal reasons. But she'd complied, and now Saturday loomed like both a promise and a test. He spent Friday evening actually cleaning his apartment himself, something he hadn't done since college. He wanted Elena to see it fresh, not through the lens of her job. He put away the business magazines scattered on the coffee table, threw out the takeout containers accumulating in the fridge, even made his bed with fresh sheets. Standing in his living room, he tried to see the space through Sophia's eyes. What would a 3-year-old make of this place? It was pristine and expensive and utterly devoid of personality. No photos on the walls, no trinkets or mementos, nothing that said a real person lived here. On impulse, Marcus went to his desk and got Sophia's crayon drawing. He'd been keeping it there, but now he took it to the refrigerator and stuck it up with a magnet. The bright red heart looked absurd against the sleek stainless steel, completely out of place in the designer kitchen. It was perfect. Elena texted Saturday morning. "Sophia's very excited. She's wearing her castle visiting clothes. Fair warning, she may have very strong opinions about your furniture." Marcus smiled at his phone. "My furniture could use some strong opinions. See you at 2. "See you then." When they arrived, Sophia was indeed dressed for castle visiting, a sparkly purple dress with a plastic tiara that was slightly crooked on her curls. She clutched a small backpack, shaped like a unicorn. "Welcome to my home," Marcus said, opening the door wide. Sophia's eyes went huge as she took in the expansive foyer, the marble floors, the crystal chandelier. "Mama," she whispered, "it really is a castle." "It's very fancy," Elena said carefully, taking in the space with fresh eyes. Marcus saw her noting the expensive art, the designer furniture, the floor-to-ceiling windows with their million-dollar views. "Would you like a tour?" Marcus asked Sophia. She nodded eagerly, slipping her hand into his with that easy trust that made his heart ache. He showed them through the apartment, watching Sophia's reactions. She loved the big windows. You can see the whole world. Was puzzled by the formal dining room he never used. Why do you need so many forks? And was scandalized by how many rooms were empty or barely furnished. "Don't you have toys?" she asked, concerned. "I don't, actually. I should probably get some, though. Do you have any recommendations?" Sophia considered this seriously. Building blocks are good. And crayons. Everyone needs crayons. She looked around his minimalist living room. And colors. You need more colors. Everything is white and gray and boring. "Sophia," Elena said, mortified. "That's not polite. But it's true, Mama. Look." Sophia gestured around. "Where are the pictures? Where are the happy things?" "She's right," Marcus said, crouching down to Sophia's level. "I haven't made this place very happy, have I? Maybe you could help me fix that." Sophia brightened immediately. "I'm very good at fixing things. I fixed Mama's sad when Daddy left. I can fix your sad house too." Elena's face went pale, and Marcus could see her struggling with whether to correct Sophia or let it go. He made the decision for her. "That's very kind of you. What should we do first?" "Art," Sophia declared. "Every castle needs art. Do you have paper?" Marcus found printer paper and brought out the colored pencils he'd impulsively bought Thursday night. Sophia immediately sat cross-legged on his expensive Persian rug and started drawing. Elena sat on the couch, looking uncomfortable. Marcus sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "She's right, you know," Elena said quietly. "This place feels empty." "I know. I've always thought of it as peaceful. Uncluttered." "It's a mausoleum, Marcus. There's nothing of you here. No photos, no books you've actually read for pleasure, no hobbies or interests. It's like you don't really live here, You just exist here between work sessions. That's exactly what I do, Marcus admitted. I haven't thought of anywhere as home since my father died. This is just a place to sleep. That's sad. I know. He watched Sophia draw, her tongue poking out in concentration. But I'm trying to change that, starting with learning what home actually means. Elena was quiet for a moment. Home is messy. Home is lived in. Home is full of things that matter to you, even if they're not valuable to anyone else. She pulled out her phone and showed him a photo of her apartment. Small, cramped, but bursting with life. Drawings on the fridge, photos on every surface, toys in colorful bins, plants in mismatched pots on the windowsill. This is home. Not because it's fancy, but because it's ours. It's beautiful, Marcus said, meaning it. Done, Sophia announced, holding up her drawing. It showed a large building, presumably his penthouse, with flowers and butterflies and rainbows all around it. Stick figures stood in front, 3 of them holding hands. This is what your castle should look like. Happy. Can I keep it? Marcus asked. Sophia nodded seriously. You can put it on your fridge like Mama puts mine. I actually already have one of your drawings on my fridge, Marcus said, leading her to the kitchen. Sophia gasped with delight when she saw her original crayon heart displayed prominently. You kept it. She turned to her mother. Mama, he kept my heart. I see that, Elena said softly, something unreadable in her expression. It's my favorite thing in the whole apartment, Marcus told Sophia. When I look at it, I remember that day and how you tried to make me less sad. Did it work?
Sophia asked. Yes.
It really did. Marcus hung her new drawing next to the first one. Now I have 2. You can have as many as you want, Sophia said generously. I make lots of hearts. They spent the afternoon transforming Marcus's sterile apartment. Sophia directed the operation with the confidence of a general, and Marcus found himself following her instructions. They moved furniture around to create a cozy corner, with the couch pillows arranged in a nest. They hung Sophia's drawings throughout the apartment with tape. They even raided Marcus's bedroom closet and used some of his expensive ties as decoration. Sophia draped them over lamps and chair backs, declaring that everything needed more color. Elena watched with amusement as Marcus, one of the most powerful men in New York, took orders from a 3-year-old about home decor. You're really going along with this, she observed. Why wouldn't I? She's right. This place needed life. Marcus looked around at the controlled chaos Sophia had created. It's not perfect anymore, but it's better. By dinner time, Sophia was getting tired and cranky. Marcus ordered pizza, the same place they'd gone to last week, and they ate it on the floor of his living room because Sophia insisted it was more fun that way. After dinner, Sophia curled up in the pillow nest she'd created, her eyes drooping. Someone's ready for bed, Elena said gently. But I'm not tired, Sophia protested, even as she yawned hugely. I want to stay at the castle. You can come back, Marcus found himself saying. Anytime you want. This is your castle too now. Sophia smiled sleepily. Really? Really? Then I'll bring more drawings. Lots more. We have so much more decorating to do. Her eyes drifted closed. Elena started to gather their things, preparing to leave, but Marcus stopped her. Stay. Just a little longer. Let her sleep. Elena hesitated, then nodded. They moved to the kitchen, leaving Sophia sleeping peacefully in her nest of pillows. Marcus poured them both wine, and they stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. Thank you for today, Marcus said. For coming here. For letting Sophia work her magic. She does have magic, doesn't she? Elena said softly. She sees the best in everything, everyone. I worry sometimes that the world will take that from her. Not if we protect it. Not if we show her it's okay to believe in good things. Elena turned to face him. I want to be part of this, Elena. Part of your lives. I know it's fast and crazy and probably a terrible idea, but I can't stop thinking about last Saturday. About feeling real for the first time in years. About watching Sophia see magic in butterflies and you being the most patient, loving mother I've ever seen. I want that. I want you. Marcus. I know I don't deserve it. I know I'm probably going to mess it up. I've never done this, never wanted to do this. But I'm asking you to give me a chance. Let me try to be someone worthy of that little girl calling me her prince. Elena's eyes were wet with tears. What if you wake up tomorrow and realize this was just a fantasy? What if the reality of a ready-made family is too much? I have stretch marks and student debt, and a daughter who still has nightmares sometimes. My life isn't glamorous or exciting. It's ordinary and complicated, and Marcus kissed her. Softly at first, then deeper when she kissed him back. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. Your life is extraordinary, he said. And I want to be part of it, stretch marks and student debt and nightmares and all. You're crazy, Elena whispered, but she was smiling. Probably. But I think maybe that's okay. They heard Sophia stirring in the other room, and Elena pulled away gently. I should get her home. Or, Marcus took a breath. You could stay. Both of you. I have a guest room, plenty of space. It's late. You'd have to wake her for the subway. Marcus. I'm not trying to rush anything. I just mean for tonight, practically speaking. Marcus. Elena put a hand on his chest. Okay. Okay, we'll stay. But in the guest room. And this doesn't mean... I know. I'm not expecting anything. I just want you here. Safe. Close. They got Sophia settled in the guest room, a space that had never been used and felt more lived in after 5 minutes of Sophia's presence than it had in the 5 years Marcus had owned the apartment. Elena tucked her daughter in, singing a soft lullaby in Spanish that made Marcus's throat tight. After Sophia was asleep, Marcus and Elena sat on his couch, formerly pristine, now decorated with Sophia's ties and surrounded by her drawings. My life is never going to be the same after this, is it?
Marcus said.
Probably not. Sophia has that effect on people. I meant you both. He took Elena's hand. A week ago, I thought I had everything figured out. Now I can't imagine going back to what my life was before that crayon heart appeared on my desk. We can take this slow, Elena said. We should take this slow. For Sophia's sake. Agreed. But slow doesn't mean stopping, right? Right. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. This is terrifying, you know.
Letting you in.
Trusting that you won't leave when things get hard or boring or real. I spent 12 years building walls to keep everyone out, Marcus said. I'm not going to walk away from the first person who made me want to tear them down. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle outside. Somewhere in the guest room, Sophia slept peacefully, probably dreaming of butterflies and castles and princes who learned to smile. Hey, Marcus. Elena said sleepily. Yeah, your apartment looks better with our mess in it. Marcus looked around at the chaotic home decor Sophia had created, at the pizza boxes on the coffee table, at the crayons scattered across his expensive rug. It really does, he agreed. 3 months later, Sophia's drawings covered almost every wall in Marcus's apartment. The guest room had been transformed into a proper bedroom for her, complete with a bed shaped like a castle and more toys than any 3-year-old needed. Elena had moved in slowly, first keeping clothes there, then books, then finally admitting that she spent more nights there than at her own apartment. The penthouse that had once been a sterile showcase had become a home, messy and loud and full of love. Marcus still worked hard, but he left the office at reasonable hours now. He attended Sophia's preschool events and helped Elena with dinner and read bedtime stories with different voices for each character. James visited one evening and stood in the doorway, shaking his head in wonder. I can't believe this is the same place. Or that you're the same person. Marcus, sitting on the floor with Sophia showing him how to build a proper block tower, grinned. Neither can I. Sophia looked up at James. Are you a prince too? No, I'm just James. That's okay. Not everyone can be a prince. But if you're nice, you can be a knight. Knights are very important. I'll try my best, James said seriously. Later, after Sophia was asleep and Elena was in the kitchen, James pulled Marcus aside. You're really doing this? The whole family thing? Yeah, I really am. And you're happy? Marcus thought about his answer. Was he happy? He was exhausted most of the time. Turns out raising a preschooler was harder than running a company. His apartment was never clean anymore. His carefully ordered life had been upended by toy trucks and bedtime negotiations and endless questions about why the sky was blue and where butterflies slept. I'm happier than I've ever been, he said honestly. Good. James clapped him on the shoulder. You deserve it, man. You really do. That night, after James left and Elena had fallen asleep beside him, Marcus lay awake thinking. He'd spent 12 years chasing success, building an empire, proving himself. And he'd succeeded. By every conventional measure, he'd won. But none of it had felt like winning until a 3-year-old drew a heart on his desk and reminded him what was actually important. He got up quietly and went to his office. Looking at the original crayon heart that still sat on his desk, he'd refused to move it, even when Elena offered to frame it properly. Next to it was a photo from last month. Him and Elena and Sophia at the Central Park Zoo, all three of them laughing at something a penguin had done. In the photo, Marcus was smiling, really smiling, the kind that reached his eyes and transformed his face. Sophia was on his shoulders, her small hands in his hair. Elena stood beside them, her hand on his arm, looking at him with an expression that still took his breath away. They looked like a family. They were a family. Marcus picked up a pen and wrote in his journal, something Elena had encouraged him to start, saying everyone needed a place to process their thoughts. Today Sophia asked me if I was really a prince. I told her no, that princes are from fairy tales. She thought about that very seriously, then said, but Mama says we make our own fairy tales. And ours has you in it. So maybe you're a prince in our story. I realized she's right. This is our fairy tale, imperfect and messy and nothing like the storybooks. And it's better than anything I could have imagined. He closed the journal and went back to bed, sliding under the covers next to Elena. She stirred and moved closer, and he wrapped his arms around her, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. Through the baby monitor on the nightstand, they could hear Sophia talking in her sleep. More colors? Need more colors for the castle? Elena laughed softly. She's redecorating in her dreams now. We should probably stop her before she decides the dining room needs to be painted purple. Too late. She already asked me about that yesterday. Marcus groaned, but he was smiling. What did you tell her? I told her to ask you. Traitor. Prince, Elena corrected, kissing him. Remember? You're her prince. And what are you? I'm the woman who fell in love with a sad billionaire who learned how to smile. She paused. I love you, Marcus. It was the first time either of them had said it out loud. Marcus felt his heart expand in his chest, felt that last wall crumble into dust. I love you too. Both of you. My unexpected family. Not so unexpected anymore. No, Marcus agreed, pulling her closer. Not anymore. Outside, the city continued its endless movement. Millions of people chasing their own dreams, building their own empires, searching for their own happiness. But inside this apartment, in this bed, Marcus Castellano had already found everything he'd been looking for. All because a little girl had drawn a heart on his desk and reminded him that love had always been missing from his carefully constructed life. It wasn't missing anymore. 1 year later, the adoption papers were finalized on a Tuesday. Marcus held them in shaking hands while Sophia, now 4 years old and more brilliant than ever, bounced excitedly on Elena's lap. So now you're really my daddy? Sophia asked for the 100th time. Now I'm really your daddy, Marcus confirmed, his voice rough with emotion. Forever and ever? Forever and ever. Even when I'm grown up? Even when you're grown up? Even when I'm old like Grandma? Even when you're old like Grandma. Sophia considered this, then nodded satisfied. Okay, but you should know, I'm going to draw on a lot more of your stuff. Marcus laughed, tears running down his face. I'm counting on it. Elena was crying too, happy tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. Marcus looked at his wife, They'd gotten married 6 months ago in a small ceremony with only their closest friends and family and their daughter, and felt complete in a way he'd never thought possible. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Marcus and Elena stood in his office, their office now. Sophia's drawings covered the walls, a testament to 3 years of love and laughter and the slow transformation of a house into a home. "Thank you," Marcus said to Elena. "For what?" "For taking a chance on a sad man in a tower who'd forgotten how to smile. For showing me what really matters. For making me a father." "Thank you for being brave enough to change," Elena replied. "For choosing us over your empty perfection. For being the prince Sophia always believed you were." Marcus kissed her, then led her to the desk where it all began. The original crayon heart was still there, faded now but no less precious. Next to it was a newer drawing, Sophia's latest masterpiece. 3 figures labeled in her careful preschool handwriting: Daddy, Mommy, and me. Around them, Sophia had drawn dozens of hearts in every color. "Home is where the heart is." Marcus read the words Sophia had dictated for him to write at the bottom. "That's what she told me this morning," Elena said. "I asked her what it meant and she said, 'Home is wherever Daddy and Mommy are because that's where all the love lives.'" Marcus traced the drawing with his finger, the same way he traced that first crayon heart 3 years ago. That scared, lonely billionaire seemed like a different person now, and in many ways he was. "You know what's funny?" Marcus said. "I spent my whole life thinking I needed to be perfect, to have everything under control. And then a 3-year-old came along and drew a heart on my desk, and everything I thought I knew turned out to be wrong. What's the right answer?" Elena asked. Marcus pulled her close, looking at their daughter's drawing of their family, crooked and colorful and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. "Love," he said simply. "Love was always the answer. I just needed someone small and wise to show me that." Outside, the city lights twinkled like fallen stars. Inside, a once-empty penthouse was now a home, filled with laughter and art and the beautiful chaos of family life. And on a mahogany desk worth more than most people made in a year, a faded crayon heart served as a reminder that sometimes the most valuable things in life can't be bought. They can only be given, freely and without expectation, by someone who sees you and loves you anyway.